We started session one with a look at the biblical mandate for God's people to care for all of creation and the environment. And then we introduced the creation care concept of watershed discipleship, a practice that calls us to be disciples of our local watersheds, learning what they have to teach about beauty, interconnectedness, and resiliency. We want to continue that theme in the second session. But before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge the land on which we stand. Let us come before the Creating One in a moment of gratitude as we congregate on Ojibwe, Dakota, and Ho-Chunk land, where we now gather, generations gathered, long before Europeans landed on these shores. The original inhabitants of this land, known to some indigenous peoples as Turtle Island, took seriously the Creator's call to be stewards of air, land, water, and creature. This afternoon, we give our thanks for their knowledge and wisdom. We exist in this place because of the lessons they continue to teach. And I would like to ask someone to do the opening prayer. Would someone be willing to come up and... Thank you.
Great Spirit, give us hearts to understand, never to take from creation's beauty more than we can give, never to destroy wantonly for the furtherance of greed, never to deny to give our hands for the building of earth's beauty, never to take from her what we cannot use. Give us hearts to understand that to destroy earth's music is to create confusion, that to wreck her appearance is to blind us to beauty, that to callously pollute her fragrance is to make a house of stench, that as we care for her, she will care for us. We have forgotten who we are. We have sought only for our own security. We have exploited simply for our own ends. We have distorted our knowledge. We have abused our power. Great Spirit, whose dry lands thirst, help us to find the way to refresh your lands. Great Spirit, whose waters are choked with debris and pollution, help us to find a way to cleanse your waters. Great Spirit, whose beautiful earth grows ugly with misuse, help us to find a way to restore beauty to your handiwork. Great Spirit, whose creatures are being destroyed, help us to find a way to replenish them. Great Spirit, whose gifts to us are being lost in selfishness and corruption, help us find the way to restore our humanity.
In case any of you are wondering, that prayer is included in the packet that you have. And most of what's said is also included in your packet. In Northern Australia, they're home to the Yolngu peoples. There's a concept expressed in the word Garma, which means knowledge sharing, or the place where the salt water and the fresh water meet. Aboriginal elder for the Ojibwe people and caretaker for the Gumatji tribe or clan, Lak Burawanga, explains, as the fresh water comes off and out of the land and sky, it meets the salt water of the sea. There is a mixing, a meeting and mingling that brings difference together without erasing it. There is power in knowledge with two waters mixing. Garma has to be actually two ways. Western knowledges, too, need to learn. People are not separated from nature. The earth is not separated from the sky. Songs and stories are not separated from people and objects. All these things exist as part of one another and come into being together. You have to start from the place, whatever your clan, you are to start from your own land, and then you sing what's there in the land. Indigenous people have important knowledge and wisdom to share about creation care. May we hear them with an open mind and an open heart. Miss Sharon Day is enrolled in the Boys Fort Band of Ojibwe. She is one of the founders of the Indigenous Peoples Task Force, formerly known as the Minnesota American Indians AIDS Task Force. Began as a volunteer organization in 1987, Ms. Day has served as the executive director since May of 1990. The task force strives to ground its services in the culture of American Indian people. Sharon is second-degree Medewiwin and follows the spiritual path of the Anishinaabe people. She is an artist, musician, and writer. She has acted with Pangaea, am I saying that right? Pangaea? World Theater, Illusion Theater, and the American History Theater. In addition, she developed and led the first Native American acting troupe and has directed many youth performances. Ms. Day has received numerous awards, including the Resourceful Woman Award, the Gisela Knapka Award, the BIHA Women of Color Award, the National Native American AIDS Prevention Resource Center's Red Ribbon Award, and most recently the Alston Bannerman Sabbatical Award. This is the one I would think you would be most proud of. She has been named as one of the 100 best loved women by Yes Magazine. She is an editor of the anthology Sing, Whisper, Shout, Pray, Feminist Visions for a Just World. She is also founder of Nibby Walk, Indigenous-led walks to raise awareness of our Earth's fresh water. Sharon has led 5 water walks, maybe more by now. The southern direction of the Mother Earth Water Walk, which began at Gulfport, Mississippi, and ended in Ashland, Wisconsin. The Mississippi River Water Walk, the Seneca Lake Water Walk, the Ohio River Water Walk, and the Pogegama Water Walk. Each walk is ceremony to save the life-giving force of water. Please welcome Anishinaabe Sharon Day.
Okay. All right. I guess. Yes. Buju Ninindwe Maganiduk, Nagamo Mayangan Dishnakaz, Wabisheshi, Ndodem, Ojibwe Quain down, Dishnejo, Medeo, Medewanakwe and down. So, what I said to you in our sort of Ojibwe and Anishinaabe protocol greeting is hello, my relatives. My name is Singing Wolf, and I'm from the Martin clan, the Wabisheshi clan, and it's our job to take care of the people. And other clans have other responsibilities, but that's the clan I was born into, and that's what I've been able to do my entire life in whatever particular paid job position I've had. And I also said I'm a Ojibwe woman. All of my ancestors are from the Ojibwe Nation, and my grandparents on both sides are from Boys Fort Reservation, which came to be in about 1854, around there. And see, what else did I tell you? And I told you I'm Medewiwin, which is second-degree Medewiwin. And you know, like if you go to a church long enough, you get to be a member of that church. Well, to say that you're a Medewiwin, first degree, second degree, whatever degree you are, is to say that you stood in front of the elders in the lodge at some point. And for me, it was after going to ceremonies for 17 years, and it was against the law for us to practice our ceremonies until 1978. And I remember being someplace near Turtle Lake. We went way back in the bush, probably around 1975, and there was a teepee, and there were about 30 of us in it, and that's all the people that there were. And today, if you go to spring ceremonies, although we didn't have one this year because of COVID, but normally if you go to spring ceremonies, there might be someplace between 1,000 to 2,000 people that would come through there. And so anyhow, after about 17 years of going to ceremonies and working in the kitchen and washing pots and pans and running to the grocery store and being able to sit in the lodge and hear some of the teachings once in a while, I offered my asema. And so you have to stand in front of the grandmothers and say, what your name is and your clan and Niswain Dan, we Medewian. I wish to be Medewan. And they may say, take your asema, your tobacco, and then you have to study for a year. And you have to go to ceremonies for at least 4 days, 4 times a year. And they give you teachings at each, and also you feed all the people that are there. And you make a gift, a bundle. And in that bundle, you put all of the things that you think about. Maybe some of the ways that some of the things that hurt you, or maybe some of the things that you might have done to other people that caused them pain. You think about those things, and you make this bundle, and you have to use your own hands to make it. And usually it's things that people, Medewan people, would need, like maybe a hand drum, or maybe a shaker, or a copper vessel, and a blanket, things like that. And so when you're first degree, you have to make 7 of those. And that, so you have a year to do that. And at the end of the year, and you've gone to those ceremonies for at least 4 days, 4 times a year, then you stand in that doorway again, and you say your name and your clan, and again you say, Niswain Dan we Medewian, in whatever degree it is that you're seeking. And then the grandmothers, either you carry this bundle and you drop it, and then you say that, and then they either say yes, come in, or they say baka, wait. And so so I've only done that 2 times. Once in 1998, became first Medewan, and then in 2008 I went through again. And so they don't. So to say, to proclaim yourself Medewan, and I could go even more and say who initiated me, and who my sponsors were, and that kind of thing. But I won't bore you with all of that. It's just to say that if somebody tells you they're Medewan, it's not a small thing. It's not a little thing. And when I was a little kid, I used to ask my dad, who are the Medewan? And he'd say, they're the people who study the plants, and they help people to stay healthy. Or when people get sick, they help them to get healthy. Oh, well, who gets to be Medewan? You have to be invited. Oh, well, who invites you? You have to be a person of good moral character. And so anyhow, I was kind of a crazy teenager. And so when I was standing in that doorway, there are all these things going through my mind, like, are they going to think that I'm a person of good moral character? And are they going to invite me to come in, or am I going to have to wait? And one of the things that I thought about was, I'm not only was I a crazy teenager, but I'm also a two-spirit woman, and I wasn't quite sure how the lodge would view that. And not only am I just a two-spirit woman, but I think it was 1984, something like that. It was on the front page Metro section of the St. Paul Pioneer Press. Sharon Day Garcia, that was my name then. Sharon Day Garcia, member of the LGBT task force, recommends blah, blah, blah. And so I picked up, back those days, you read the newspaper first thing in the morning. Now it's like, you pick up your phone and you look at CNN or something like that. But those days, the newspaper was delivered to your door. You went out in the rain and the snow and you got it and you read it, right? So I get this newspaper and I look on it and, I get to the Metro section. Oh my God. Excuse me. And I I pick up the phone. We didn't have cell phones then. I pick up the phone, I call my mom. And I say, Mom, can I come and have coffee? And she says, sure, I'll put a pot on. So I throw some clothes on and drive across town to my mother's house. And I walk in, and she had a little round table like this in her dining room area. And there was a cup and the newspaper open to the Metro section. And so I sat down and, we hadn't had this conversation yet. And she poured me some coffee, and I sat for a minute, and I say, well, I see you've seen the newspaper. And she said, yeah. And then she walked over to she had a phone on the wall. She walked over to the phone on the wall, and she picked it up, dialed the number. Hello, Arlene? Arlene was my oldest sister who passed this year, a few months ago. She was my oldest sister who, was my mother's first child, and she's 14 years older than me. And it's the one that was held up to all of us as a gold standard, right? The one who never did anything wrong. The one you heard all the stories about, oh, Arlene did this. Oh, Arlene did this, and you knew you could never fill those shoes. She says, Arlene, pick up a copy of the St. Paul Pioneer Press. Your sister's on the Metro page. Yeah, okay, bye. And she looks at me, and then she just starts laughing. Because my sister, not only was she the person who was the gold standard, but she was also the person who married a chemical engineer, who was a Republican, and so this was a sister. And so after she hung up the phone and she just giggled, she was looking at me and giggles. It was like, you know what? It doesn't matter what anybody in the world thinks about you if your mother loves you. So anyhow, so this is all in my mind, because I'm a quiet person, but I don't always do things quietly. And so, to have it be on the front page of the newspaper I thought I was just doing my job, and so I was wondering, what are all those grandmothers going to be thinking, when I ask them, are they going to think I'm a person of good moral character? And, luckily for me, they did. And not only for me, but our lodge would be hard-pressed to do their work without all of the Two-Spirit people who are, the people who work with the tobacco, who work with the initiates, who... and, there was let me get off of that. But anyhow, that's who I am. And in around 1998, in Minneapolis, there's a spring. It's the last free-flowing spring called Camp Coldwater. And it was right near my house, right near the Mississippi River. And we got a call one day, and it was from the Grand Chief of our lodge, and he said, all you Medewan, go over there and help those Dakota people trying to save this spring. And so we went over there, and now I had lived in this neighborhood for a long time, and I walked my dog along the river, Mississippi River, on the St. Paul side, because on the other side is Fort Snelling. Fort Snelling, the place where they interned 3,000 Dakota people in 1862. And then they sent them downstream to Mankato, and 300 of them they sent downstream, and then they executed 38 of them. And then the remaining, the ones that they didn't hang, they sent them down to Davenport, Iowa, where they were kept in prison for another 5 years. And then after that, they sent them up the Missouri to Crow Creek, South Dakota, where of those 3,000 people that were there, 1,500 of them perished because the men who were bringing the food in the wagons sold it along the way. And there was no infrastructure there. There was no village. There was nothing. And so they, over the next year and a half, they perished. So that's where we were at Fort Snelling. And I used to remember hearing about some ceremonies that would take place on that side of the river. And so the next night, we had a pipe ceremony. We had a pipe ceremony in one of the houses of the people who refused to leave. And it wasn't just Dakota people that were trying to stop the spring, but 200 homeowners whose homes were all taken by eminent domain. They were forced out of their homes, but there were 4 that stayed. And in one of those homes that night, when we had that pipe ceremony, the Grand Chief, he said, this is a sacred place where the spring comes into the earth. And it's also sacred because when the Dakota, it wasn't just Dakota though, there was always intermarriage, right? And so he said some of the Ojibwe people were there as well. Women had babies there. Some of those babies didn't survive. Some of those mothers didn't survive. And what he said was they need somebody to remember them. And they're still crying. And sometimes when I'd walk on the other side of the river, on that St. Paul side, at twilight, I could hear that. And that's why I never ever went over to Fort Snelling. And but here we were. And the next night we had a sweat lodge. There was a sweat built there. And so we were inside this lodge, and then right down the way from us, there was another group of people having full moon ceremony. And I always heard about them, but I never knew where they were. Anyhow, they're right down the way from us, and we'd sing, and then they'd sing. And a sacred place. Every place on this earth is sacred. Every place is holy ground. But there are some places where that metaphysical relationship we have is stronger than others. When I crossed that bridge right here, like you could feel the energy of that water, right? So some places have more of a pull, to us. And that's how it began. And one of the things the chief said to us that night was, what will you do for the water? And in our teachings, it's women who are responsible for taking care of the water. And we know just from, what we know about geography and history, and it's always the women who go and gather the water. And I don't care if you're in South Africa or India or any place on Turtle Island. It's the women who always go and gather the water. And we're the ones who sing those songs and make those petitions. And water is just nibi, water. It's only through those petitions, those offerings, those songs, when we lift it, that it becomes Medewa Bu, that sacred water. And I think, some churches, like I think it's maybe Catholics and Episcopal people, and maybe, they have what they call communion, right? And they give you some wine and some bread, and you eat that and you drink that, and that's how you communicate with Creator, right? So it's the same way with us, like, it's through, but they must do something to that wine to make it holy, right? Or those wafers, they must offer a prayer about them first, right? And I would imagine they do. Or when they have holy water, how does it become holy water? Well, I know for us, when we make those offerings, when we gather that water, when we sing those songs, that's how it becomes holy. That's how it becomes sacred water. And so that's how it began. Grandmother Josephine Mendamen, she started the water walks in 2003. For me, from 1998 until 2001, it was involved with saving the spring. And, my sister and I would say we were arrested for being civilly obedient and, trying to save the water. And that was a very long process for us. And in Josephine, she was sitting up in Thunder Bay thinking, because she heard Budwaywood and the Grand Chief say the same thing, what will you do for the water? And I remember we were in ceremony, and he said, what would happen if all of the women of the world, because we're the ones who gather the water, right? What would happen if all of the women of the world said no more? We are not going to allow the cities, the farmers, the corporations, the mining companies, all those extractive industries to poison our water. What would happen if all of the women in the world said no more? And so Josephine, sometimes people think, somebody who does something extraordinary, and Josephine Mendamen was an extraordinary woman. But sometimes people think, somebody who does extraordinary things had some kind of enlightenment or some kind of a flash, a calling, or something like that. And what Josephine did was she cleaned out her house. She got rid of all the toxic cleaning chemicals, and she preserved the water. She taught her children to do that, grandchildren. And then she was sitting there up in Thunder Bay thinking, what can I do next? And she happened to be downtown Thunder Bay, and she was walking, and this old Indian man comes up to her, and he says, bonjour. And she says, bonjour. And he said, I saw you. When she looked at him, she didn't know who he was. And he said, I saw you. You're with your sisters, and you had long skirts on, and you had a bucket in your hand, and you were walking along Lake Superior. And she looked at him and she said, that wasn't her yet. And she got home and she thought, I could do that. I could walk. I could carry the water, because water has to move to be healthy. I could walk around Lake Superior. And so she came to the lodge and she said, this is what I want to do. I want to carry the water around Lake Superior. What do you all think about that? And so we all said, yeah, sure. Yeah, it's a good thing to do. And so I was able to walk with her at the beginning, and then we had a small school at the time, and we sent our kids up to Grand Portage, and they filmed her going across. They walked with her that morning, and then they filmed her going across the border to just document, so she wouldn't have any difficulty. And she had a lot of women walk with her. And I went over on that, when she was on the eastern shore. And it's kind of a lark. I took a few women with me, and, we walked a mile here and there when it was our turn. And people fed us, and restaurant, it was all tourism over there. And they know that the water has to stay healthy. And they would come and say, come to my restaurant tonight and I'll feed you. Or come to my resort and I'll put you up. And I thought, well, if you're walking for 2 days, it's a lark. But if you're walking for 42 days, or 63 days, or Missouri River, 54 days, if you're walking every day and you don't have a Saturday or Sunday, but every single day you're walking, and I don't care if you're only walking, if there's 5 of you, and I do this with kids. If there's 5 women walking and you walk 30 miles a day, how many miles does each woman walk? That's a question. Come on. 5th grader, 6. And if you walk 54 days, how many miles is that? Huh? You're walking 54 days times 6 miles a day. 6 miles a day times 54 days. It's a lot of miles, right? So that's what we do. And when you're doing that every day, and you're the one who has to figure out where are these 5 women going to sleep, where are they going to, who's going to feed you, how are you going to eat, and there's reporters calling, and do you have enough water, and who's going to dump the RV? Those are all, who's going to do laundry, whose turn is it to do laundry? All of those things, it's not so much of a lark. And, but anyhow, that's what Josephine did. She walked all the Great Lakes, and then after that, we hauled the water from the 4 oceans to Lake Superior. That was the first walk I led, and since then I've led 23 other walks. And so, and again, it wasn't like, oh, let me do this. Josephine said, who's going to carry the water from the west? Well, Washington State, I have family out there. That would be really nice. But somebody out there took that. And the east, from Maine to here, that's going through a lot of tribal lands, New York, Michigan, a lot of tribes. Somebody took that. Josephine said, I'll carry the water from Hudson Bay. The south, who wants the south? Gulfport, Mississippi to Lake Superior. You're walking through Mississippi, Arkansas, Missouri. Any tribes in those states? Remember Manifest Destiny, and they moved all the tribes west of the Mississippi? Yeah, no tribes down there. Anyhow, so nobody took it, and Josephine said again, who's with me? Okay, I'll do it. Yeah. And since then, but there's something about having that water in your hand, gathering it, offering those prayers for it, and it's like an infant. Somebody, you took it, you orphaned it, you need to take care of it till it gets where it's going. And there's something so precious about that. And it doesn't matter whether, we've carried that water 3 days, 10 days, 62 days. When you pour it back into that source, there's this immense loneliness. It's like your kid going off to college. Those of you who have children you've sent far away to school, right? It's like, it's the way it's supposed to be. They're supposed to grow up. They're supposed to leave you, and hopefully you've done a good enough job raising them that they will know how to act right? And still, when that kid is just barely 18, like, and you're going to miss them so much, right? But it's the way it's supposed to be. And that's what it feels like to pour that water that you've been carrying for 50 days, for 30 days, for 60 days, for 3 days back into the water. It's, there's this wave of loneliness that sort of washes over you, and you cry tears. And but that's the way it's supposed to be. So, and as we're walking, we're praying and we're singing to that water. And Josephine said, when we poured those water from the 4 oceans in one big copper pail, and we went out in a boat a mile out into Lake Superior, she said, who knows how long it will take this water to get back to its homes, the Pacific, the North Bay, the Atlantic, and the Gulf of Mexico. Who knows how long it will take that water to get back to its home. But these waters, they will confer with each other on the way. And when they get back home, they will tell the other water, the oceans, that there are still human beings who love and care for the water. And if we can love and care for the water, and if we can know, I am water, you are 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 water. If we can understand that we are the water, and if we can love and care and respect for that water that I just drove over, if we know that, then maybe we can treat each other with love and care and respect. Yeah. So that's why we do it. That's what we do. We do have a walk on the Willow River coming up October 17th and 18th, I think it's scheduled right now. And I don't know if it's going to, I can't tell you whether it's going to really happen or not because of COVID. But we will be out, if we do walk it, it's only 2 days, and we'll be outside. People need to stay in the vehicles they came in. Most of the time there's kind of a leapfrog and people go from car to car, but in this instance we would, when you're not walking, you would need to be in the car that with the people that you came with. So I don't know what's going to happen with that, but hopefully we'll be able to walk it. And then I just, the last thing I want to say is there's also, you know, we're doing something called creating this tree of peace, which is, you know, things evolve sometimes. And one day I was just thinking about how, you know, the Minnesota legislature has not done anything about police violence, and the federal government didn't do anything. And yet when, after George Floyd was killed, and there were marches all over, not only the United States, but the world, and everyone said, we're going to do something, we're going to do something. And then you could see them sort of backtracking. And I thought, you know, like most of us couldn't be out there marching, even though maybe that's what we did all our life. But, you know, these young people, they said no more. And so I was angry. And I thought, you know, in the lodge, if we were in the lodge and our leader was, you know, acting some way, or anybody, it would be the grandmothers who would go and escort him out of the lodge, right? And like, maybe that's what we need to do. Maybe we need to go to the White House. We need to. And then, you know, the more I thought about it, I thought, okay, we're going to make these panels saying what we think, and we'll go put them on the fence at the White House. And then over time, I started to think about maybe what we should be doing is creating a message for our grandchildren's grandchildren. What is it that we wish for them? Because I know for a fact that I'm here today because my great-great-great-great-great-grandparents loved me. They loved me, and they sent that love forward. And I'm not here because they suffered. I'm here because when they went and picked those blueberries, I'm sure they thought, how exquisite is this berry? When they tapped the maple trees, I'm sure they thought, so much gratitude for that tree that gave us that medicine. And how did they even know that tree was medicine, right? So I know that I'm here because my ancestors loved life. And that's what we want to send forward, right? Because, some people say, well, how can you do that? And I ask them, do you know your grandparents? Anybody that you called grandmother or grandfather? And do you love them? Do you? Do you know your grandparents? Did you love them? Are they still in this plane? Do you still love them? Do you still feel their love? Yeah. So we want to send that message forward to the future for our great-great-grandchildren. This is what we hope for you. This is the kind of determination that we want you to have. We want you to love life. And what should that life look like? So I thought, maybe we should make leaves for a tree. And we'll take this tree and we'll take it to Lafayette Square. And we'll put that tree there and we'll hang all of those leaves on that tree. So that's what we're going to do October 1st and 2nd. And there are ways that you can participate by creating a leaf. Karen made one. And so they're coming in. And some of the notes that are coming in with the leaves are just as special as the leaf itself. So that's what we're going to do since we can't walk any rivers. We're going to take this message. And that invitation is on the Nibi Walk website. Do you have any questions about anything I've said? Or Sure.
So as I hear you talk about these wonderful walks that take so much heart and spirit energy and physical energy, how does that get communicated, or does that get communicated to the wider world?
Yeah.
We have PR people, I guess is what I ask.
I have a volunteer. Her name is Emily, and she takes care of our website. There are video people who follow me sometimes, make these beautiful videos that get, they're all distributed on the World Wide Web. And there are some radio people who've been following me for years. A woman out of Vermont Public Radio. She's interviewed me many times, and when we walked the Missouri River, there was a producer. He called me when we started at Three Forks, Montana, and we did an interview with him. And then when we got to North Dakota, he called me again. And he's also the producer for North Dakota, right? And so he interviewed me again. Then we got to South Dakota. It was somebody else. But, all along the way. So our goal, I tell people, it's not just to raise awareness. It's to assist in this transformation. So it's for the walkers. It's for whoever's walking, because it's in that act of doing, and then because I can sit here and tell you, oh, we are the water. But when you're carrying that water and you get up every morning at the crack of dawn and you're starting in ceremony and you walk all day and you hand that water from one person to the other, and God's at your gate, ni bionje, I'll do it for the water. And then at the end of the day, when we make that circle on the ground, with pebbles or flowers or whatever, and we say, Gijara ge sema, what we're saying is, wait right here. And Josephine used to say, it means more than that. It means like, wait right here, don't get into any mischief, and we'll be back. And then that very circle is where we begin again the next day. And so, I had a friend of mine, Beth, she's from West Virginia, and she walked with me on the Mississippi. And, she owns her own company and does lobbying with the federal government for nonprofits. And she thought she was going to have conference calls on the walk. And after a couple of days, she realized, no, that's not going to happen. And because people say, well, what do you do when you're not walking? Oh, there's so many things to be done when you're not walking. And but you immerse yourself in that experience. And it's a different experience, right? It's you know, I'm the leader of the walk, but I'm also a servant of the people. So my job is to make sure that every single person who walks with me is taken care of. We've never had an accident. We've never, yeah, well, we've lost a walker once or twice, but we found them again because there's a GPS on the bale. But, you know, it's a different, everybody participates equally, even me. And for many people who are used to sort of a hierarchical system, you know, there's a, you know, sometimes a leader is a person everybody else waits on, right? Everybody makes sure their leader's taken care of, you know, like Trump. But ours is it's the opposite way. And so it's during that silent, meditative walking that transformation takes place in our spirit, in our culture, in the way we do things, and of course, the longer you walk, the more that has chance to take root, and so that you don't go home and business is usual, right? So the real goal is for the walkers, for the water, because I say, you know, like I'm kind of a smart person, I'm not a genius, but I can figure out if I walk 5 miles a day. Anyhow, if I really want to raise awareness, I would hire a PR firm. I would raise money, I'd hire a PR firm. But that's not enough. It really is to create that transformation, to get people reconnected to the earth and to the water. Yeah. Yeah. We start at the mouth. We start at the headwaters, and we end at the confluence or the mouth of the river. Mm-hmm.
I think I've had the privilege of walking this business, which for all you do.
Yeah.
I was active in the anti-mining struggle for years for a long time. And at the Food Array, we did a lot of gatherings
Mhm.
where we mixed the waters and buckets and all that, put them into big kettles like that. It was extraordinarily powerful.
Mhm.
And I want to thank you for explaining about the waters going back. I never, once we brought these waters from long ways away, and, we did civil obedience during
Mhm.
those times too. But once we brought these waters from all these different points, some was from Europe, some was from the oceans, and our little, where we all lived, we tried to
Mhm.
do. But I never once thought about these waters making their way back.
Yeah.
They were intermingling and then going back.
Yeah.
That's gorgeous.
Yeah.
I just really
Mhm.
love that. Thank you.
Mhm. Anything else? Well, thank you for your attention. Okay.
Your website has all this information.
Yes.
You have songs
Mm-hmm.
on the website that you can listen to and learn.
Yes.
Okay. Is this water walk in Little River, is that the first one you will done if it goes for a while?
This will be we walked we walked the Salt River in February in Arizona, and that was the last walk we did. We have two scheduled in western Minnesota, the Otter Tail River and the Pomme de Terre, but those are closed walks. It's only for the people in that area because of COVID. So the Willow River will be the first walk in October, if that happens, that people would be able to walk.
And it's open.
It's open, yeah.
Can you say something about men participating?
Yeah, so women carry the water and men carry the eagle feather staff. And women can carry the staff as well, but men carry the staff, yep. The Willow River starts like in a farm field, kind of. I guess it would be northwest of here. Um, I can't remember the name of the nearest town. It's west of New Richmond, east of New Richmond. Yeah, sort of. Yeah. hmm Yeah. It'll be on the website. Yes, you can make a contribution. Go to either the NIBI Walk, nibiwalk.org. There's a donation button on there, or the Indigenous Peoples Task Force also. Yeah. hmm Yeah. Well, I think, I guess, most of the time people will call me up and they'll say, we'd like to have this water walk on this river, and then we kind of negotiate um, dates and things like that. Sometimes there's a reason for it, like we walked the St. Louis River in northern Minnesota because of the sulfide mining. Um, After we walked the Mississippi River, I thought that was pretty much it for me. And then one of the walkers said, well, what about the Ohio? Like, well, what about it? And she said, well, we know that the Ohio is the biggest polluter of the Mississippi. And yeah, well, and then she brought me an eagle head for the staff, and so I cried and I cussed at her, and then we walked the Ohio. And then after that, I kind of gave up. Just decided, like, okay, this is what I'm going to be doing for as long as I can walk. And so next year, if everything goes well, I'll be taking some young people who've been walking with me for a number of years. They started off, some of them, like 11 years old, and some of them are like 15 now. One is getting her doctorate right now. But I'll take 5 or 6 of these young people with me, and we're going to start in New Orleans or south of New Orleans. We'll gather the water there. Mostly we gather the water at the headwaters, and we carry it, that healthy water to the mouth. But this time we're going to carry that water that's very polluted, dead, in the Gulf of Mexico, and we're going to carry it to the headwaters and see what happens. But it'll also be just to teach these young people, because they've been walking with me, but sometimes you just kind of go along and do things, but you don't really understand the why or the philosophy, or so we'll be teaching them, and that walk will really be for them. But other than that, we have some other requests for walks. There's a down in North Carolina, there's a river. So people, will call me up, or they'll say, this is why I think we should walk this river. The Salt River, they'd contacted me like 5 years ago, and it took quite a while to figure out how we were going to do it. And so usually there's some local person, and then but then walkers come with me too, from women who walked with me many times. Okay? And if you go to the website, there's a lot of the philosophy is written. There's something I wrote years ago called Can the seven sacred teachings foster a revolution? Something like that. I think it was printed many times in Canada and the United States, and caused a lot of discussion, but you'll get the understanding of the philosophy. Okay? Thank you so much.
Whenever you dance, Wherever you dance, dance to heal the earth. Dancing is power. Dancing is prayer. Some say that all is dance. Maybe. Now there's a big dance coming, a dance to heal the earth. If you're hearing this, you're probably part of it. You take part whenever you do whatever you do to help heal the earth. When you recycle, when you choose to show love, to fight for justice, to bring healing, to bring out what is good in others. When you avoid cruelty and dishonesty and waste. When you are outraged, when you speak out, when you give, when you consider the generations to come, when you protest to the oppressors and encourage those who feel the cutting edge of injustice. And of course, when you dance. There's a tree that all the prophets see, and whenever you let your love show, you make the flowers grow.